us right now. Let's go to John Murphy. He is the Buffalo Bills radio play-by-play man and a radio host for all things Bills in Buffalo. John, welcome to the show.
Hey, great to be with you guys. How you doing today?
Doing just great. John, let me ask you one of the obvious questions right off the bat. Change of culture, Rex Ryan, can you feel it? Can you see it?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you can see it almost every day. Today, after practice this morning, Rex is talking about how he is going to accept, I don't know, I've never heard of this until today, but some kind of a dog biscuit challenge put out there by the ASPCA local branch, and he'll be eating a dog biscuit for us tomorrow after practice, I guess. And I asked him, are you going to jump out of a plane when you eat that dog biscuit, or are you going to run with the Bulls in Pamplona when this goes on? But, yeah, he's a lot of fun, and it is a change of culture. You know, it's they work hard. This team works hard, and they're serious when they're on the field. But Rex keeps the mood light. The players love him. I think they love his approach to the game. And even though he's the players' coach, he's not necessarily an easy coach. They're out there for 2+ hours every day during the training camp so far, and he's pushing them as hard as he can, but he does keep it light.
Let's shift, John. This Woody, we were just talking about that the Broncos, in the opinion of Mark Kisla, should have signed Incognito last year. He is the Buffalo Bills, from what we hear from a long distance away, their best offensive lineman. Is he getting along with everybody? Are there any issues? Is he being a good boy? Is he the best offensive lineman with the Bills right now?
Yeah, I mean, there's some pretty decent offensive linemen here. Eric Wood, the center, a veteran. He's the leader in the middle of that line, looking for to bounce back from his performance a year ago. But he's a pretty good player. They have a really good left tackle too in Cordy Glenn. But Incognito brings a veteran presence to the line. He's got a Pro Bowl in his resume. And yes, to answer your question, Woody, he's been a model citizen on and off the field. He's getting along with his teammates. Now, this is his second stint with the Bills. He was here, I think it was the 2009 season, for about 6 or 8 weeks as a injury fill-in at the end of the year, so he has some friends on this roster, some guys who are still here, and he kind of fits in, goes about his business, works very hard. The Bills recognize that they took a chance on signing him when they signed him back in early February, but so far so good for Incognito, and he's been plugged into the starting lineup at guard, and it looks like he's going to stay there.
We all know the greatness of the Patriots, but when I hear talk about the AFC and the teams on the rise, it's either the Dolphins or the Bills. How serious a threat do you think the Dolphins are in that division? And are the Bills ready to step up and say, yeah, we're a playoff team, look out?
Yeah, I mean, they finished just a game out of the playoffs last year. They finished with 9 wins last year. They need to get better, and in particular, they have a big question at the quarterback spot. But around the quarterback, they added all kinds of playmakers, and Percy Harvin and Charles Clay and LaShawn McCoy, and the defense is solid, 4th overall in the league last year. These guys are talking as if they could be the #1 defense in the league this year with the cast returning and Rex Ryan's scheme. So, yeah, they're pretty good. I mean, a 15-year playoff drought, I think people around here have had enough of that, including the players who've been here for a while. So I would think they are a playoff contender, but they've got to prove it on the field.
John, who is the leader in the quarterback competition so far at camp?
Well, I don't know if there is one. We've had 5 practices now, including today. None of them, the 3 contenders, Tyrod Taylor, E.J. Manuel, Matt Castle, none of those 3 really have distinguished themselves. Some people think that Castle might have the edge because he's sort of the safe pick, a veteran, going into his 10th year. E.J. Manuel, a former first-rounder, I think would be, the best possible solution for the Bills, but he's got to play better than he has. And even Rex Ryan today talked about E.J.'s struggles with accuracy, and that's not a good thing. Taylor is an intriguing product, the former Baltimore Ravens backup who sat behind Joe Flacco for 4 years because he brings an athletic dimension, and the Bills and many people think he's the fastest quarterback in the league. So I don't know. I mean, I think there are a couple of mileposts coming up in this training camp, including an intra-squad scrimmage on Saturday night, and then the first preseason game, and then they're having a couple of days of practices with Cleveland, and then a preseason game against Cleveland. And I think by that point, by August 20th or so, after the Browns game, after preseason game number 2, they've got a 9-day break between preseason games, and I think at that point they will anoint their quarterback. But so far, I'd be hard-pressed to tell you who the leader is. I just don't know.
Our special guest, John Murphy, the great play-by-play voice of the Buffalo Bills, and I've listened to you, John, so I can say that.
Thanks.
Yeah, it's not just coming out of my butt.
I would hope not.
I actually have. So, going back to the offensive line, let's get into a tough question. Teams lose players, PDDs for 4 games and stuff. You've lost your offensive line coach, who was a good one with the Chicago Bears for 6 games. I don't know anything about the backup offensive line coach. Usually the offensive line coach who's the backup offensive line coach is a young guy that people are trying to develop. Is that the case in Buffalo? Is this going to be a problem, even though your line coach is in camp but won't be there for the game? Is this going to be an issue for the first 6 games of the season?
Well, I mean, it's not the best possible scenario. Obviously, you'd like to have Aaron Kromer here for the whole thing, but you know, this line has been working with Kromer since they all came back in April to start workouts again, and the assistant offensive line coach is Kurt Anderson, who is, like you said, an up and coming young guy. He's about mid-30s, been around the league a little bit now, but obviously doesn't have the expertise and the experience of Aaron Kromer. So it's not the best possible solution, but Kromer will leave the week before the first game and then come back after week 6, and that's the length of his suspension. I think for a while there were people wondering whether Kromer would be back at all, and I, for one, am happy that they were able to salvage something out of it, because he's a pretty talented coach. He's got the ear of these players. I noticed right off the bat, the week after the draft when they had their rookies in, Aaron Kromer just locked on to John Miller, the rookie 3rd-round pick, from Louisville, and John Miller is now in the starting lineup. He's probably going to line up and start on opening day, but a lot of that is due to the personal, individualized attention from Aaron Kromer, who identified him as a prospect he could mold into a good player. It appears that he's done that already. Miller hasn't started a game yet, but certainly Miller has benefited from Kromer's attention, and he'll be missed. There's no question about that.
He's John Murphy, play-by-play man on radio for the Buffalo Bills. All guests brought to you by Papa John's. Better ingredients, better pizza, Papa John's.
John, who's jumping out at you at camp? When you go to camp, we talk about Broncos are jumping out at, and I would include that Percy Harvin, who's been kind of up and down. We know how much talent he has. He was shuffled off to not to Buffalo to begin with,
A little
but
bit of
to
an
the Jets.
NFL nomad.
And they wanted him out of Seattle. Is Percy Harvin doing a job like he has the talent to do? And second, is there someone that we haven't heard of that came out of the draft, or someone that you've seen there that you're going, wow, boy, this guy's stepping up?
Yeah, you've probably heard of Sammy Watkins, last year's first rounder in Buffalo.
Oh, yeah.
A little bit,
Yeah. He looks really good. I mean, he's been one of the stars of this camp so far. And again, we're only 5 practices in, but he's just got an explosive burst, and he's learning now how to run routes. He's really connecting with the new receivers coach, Sanjay Lal. And I would say, if they can find a quarterback who can get on the ball consistently, I think Sammy Watkins is going to have a big year. He had about 65 catches last year, but Watkins is just a talent. I mean, he's head and shoulders above any others in his group. Harvin is interesting to watch, Percy Harvin. Actually, on the first day, Harvin lined up at cornerback, believe it or not, as a defensive back, because they were down in numbers there. He went to the coaching staff and said, hey, if you need help, I'll play a little corner. They put him out there, and he didn't embarrass himself, but he's back now running with the offense. They are determined to make Percy Harvin a complete wide receiver. And as you guys know, he's been sort of a gadget player throughout his career in Minnesota and Seattle, and then last year, half a season with the Jets. Really good return man, and kind of a wingback run jet sweep stuff for you, and that sort of thing. They want to make him into a complete wide receiver, and he'll probably get a good shot to do that here. It's a good receiving core with Watkins on top and Robert Woods going into his 3rd year, and some other good producers like Chris Hogan. But I think Harvin is the guy to watch. And as far as another standout, a new guy who you've heard of before, LaShawn McCoy. Shady's been great. He's missed a couple of practices the last 2 with a bit of a toe injury, but that's not going to be a big problem. But he is clearly, at a different level of running back, better than anybody they've had around here for a little while.
Yeah, John, I want to ask you more about LaShawn McCoy. Number one, because of the quarterback situation, how much of the load will McCoy have? And number 2, is anybody worried that he's obsessing too much about his time in Philly and the bad relationship with Chip Kelly?
I think he's put that behind him, but he is, LaShawn is outspoken about that. I mean, he wasn't crazy about the trade when it was first made, and then they gave him a new contract and brought him up to Buffalo and showed him how good things can be here. So I think that settled him down. He had a couple of things to say about Chip Kelly a month or so ago, and I think that settled down. But you never know. I mean, there are, there are some in the media who will attempt to stir that up, I'm sure, as we move forward. And the Bills actually play the Eagles late in the season in December, and that's likely to come up that week. But he appears to have his head on straight, and Yeah, they're gonna ride him. I mean, they really are. They're talking about 300 carries for LaShawn McCoy. They have Fred Jackson behind. Yeah, they have Fred Jackson behind him to spell him. And Fred Jackson's the oldest running back in the league at age 34. He looks pretty good here too. But I think McCoy is the key man on the Buffalo offense this year. They really want to reestablish Rex Ryan's ground and pound offense here.
Boy, I didn't know Fred Jackson was still in the league, guys. I'm an idiot.
I'm required by league rules in 2015 to mention the D word, Deflategate. Is a ticked off Tom Brady and the ticked off Patriots, is that bad for the Bills and the Jets and everybody else in that division?
Or bad offensive line and missing full cornerbacks. I think it's a place for the Bills to actually jump in with. I think the Patriots are going to be down this year.
Well, the Bills get them in week 2, and it remains to be seen whether Brady will play in that game, right? If his 4-game suspension stands, he'll miss that first meeting against Buffalo, and then they'll have to play against them later in the season. Buffalo split with the Patriots in the 2 games last year. The final game, the Patriots rested their starters in the second half, so take that for what it's worth. The Bills would like to think they're closing the gap, but that's a Hall of Fame quarterback over there. Properly inflated footballs or not, it's a Hall of Fame quarterback on the New England Patriots roster, and he can do a lot of things. I've seen him do a lot of things with some limited talent around him from time to time. So I guess the Bills would catch a break if he doesn't play in week 2. I personally would love to see the Bills go up against Brady and the Patriots in week 2 with Brady on the roster, because I think it could be a heck of a game. But, that's the team. That's the target for everybody in this division.
John, appreciate your time. We now know everything about the Buffalo Bills we've ever wanted to know. We'll be listening.
My pleasure.
All right, John Murphy, the play-by-play man for the Buffalo Bills on radio.